Hey, this is Nick the Mining Book Guy. It is the morning of Saturday, November 16th, 2024. This video is first being released on my free email list early morning, Monday, November 18th. And a few days later, I plan to release it on my general YouTube page for general consumption. So my first request is please do not share this video until later this week if you're receiving it on my email list. I want people on the email list to, have an advantage in case the stock runs. Not sure if it will, but it could. And the stock is Awalé Resources, ticker ARIC on the TSXV. This is currently my largest position. I've been very quiet about this. Really haven't wanted to talk to anyone. It's only my second video this year. So much of my efforts has been, researching and almost obsessing over this stock. And I tried really hard to get the timing right to make a video on it. So I hope this timing is right. Before I go into further details, I am 100% independent from the company. I may buy or sell shares at any time, and any errors are mine alone. And there will be a lot of my own opinion in this video. In addition, I'm hoping the next 10 minutes or less will be just my, straightforward reasons that you should buy right now, why the stock's undervalued and why the share price is going to go up. But the big middle section is really my kind of personalized journey, because there's a lot I have to say about, on a timeline of my understanding of Awalé. It could be of interest to some of you, but probably not all of you. And at the end, for the people who are really interested in more research on their own, I have a whole bunch of interesting links or tidbits to share with you. So without further ado, let us jump into reasons to buy Awalé right now. All right, so we're now at the home page, and if you want to do your own research, you have everything you need here. You've got PowerPoint, you've got all your news, and some great webinars, though some are a little more on the technical side. We'll talk about a few of them here, but it's a great starting point. And for us, we're going to be going back and forth between the PowerPoint and understanding valuation. So from the PowerPoint, page 2 is your main page. There's a lot of information here, but this is a great snapshot of all the value that's being created since the inception of Awalé. And at the same time, we need to figure out, is that worth a lot more, not just than the market cap, but than the enterprise value? So one thing I'm very happy about, and this is where we're starting to talk about buy signals, I'm very happy that Awalé is under 50 cents Canadian, still, despite starting to move up, as you can see in the last week after some really exciting results from Charger, one of the targets. My cost average is about 60 or 61 cents. So not only are we well below that, but we're still below 50 cents. So my first price target, buy target, if you're seeing this early Monday morning, buying up to 50 cents, I have no qualms at all about immediately, suggesting that as an independent investor that owns shares here. That would, conservatively, we could still say that's 45 million market cap. And with the 10 million in cash or so that Awalé has, that's about 35 million in enterprise value. Not to go into too much detail here, but it is important to be aware of the overall capital structure. So what I just described was with just under 87 million shares outstanding, but the fully diluted shares outstanding is 114 million. We want to understand, especially the warrants. And from SADAR, looking at the interim financials, the weighted average exercise price is 35 cents US, which is about 48 cents Canadian. So going back here, since that's close to the current share price, it effectively doesn't change the enterprise value. So again, we're working with about 35 million enterprise value, but we also want to be aware that the Newmont JV means that all of the discoveries, so Newmont has a great JV on the middle ground, but it means that Newmont's earning in to that project and spending up to 15 million US. They will own 75% and Awalé would own 25%. This does not mean that down the road, it's just a simple straight line that Awalé will always only own 25%. A lot of things can happen, but it gives us a very conservative baseline for all of the discoveries made so far. Whether 25% of those is going to be worth more than the 35 million enterprise value of Awalé. So don't want to confuse it any more than what you might already be confused. But we're trying to figure out does what Awalé has, is it worth more than 35 million enterprise value? So we're going to go through these discoveries and not necessarily from best to worst, but I am going to start with BBM because it is the simplest and arguably most advanced of where we're at because of the simplicity of drilling it out. So we have a lot of consistent grades here, widths and grades, and it's going along this northwest structure. And another way to look at that would be looking at this long section from previous news release. So what we're seeing left to right here towards the northwest, that is what we're seeing, right to left right here. And you can see that the grades seem to be increasing, going down plunge this way. So increasing, going in that direction. And there's actually a few holes that could be released very soon. Compared to when this video is being released. So that'll be interesting to see, but you can see the grades likely to be increasing in this direction. What's great is that, if you do some basic napkin math, it would come out to possibly, 2 million ounces at, 1.5 grams per ton. And there's actually some significant copper as well. So, just thinking about that, this is a very solid tier 2 project, not something that's big enough for a Newmont, but definitely of interest to any mid-tier in West Africa. And, again, very rough valuation, 150 or 200 million Canadian market cap. That I think would be reasonable as this builds out to what this on its own would be worth. And a quarter of that is worth more than, the 40 million or 35 million enterprise value that Awalé has. So the basic argument right from the start is that BBM, a quarter of BBM could be justified for Awalé's enterprise value right now. So that's a great starting point. But the super exciting thing happening is Charger with these incredible grades. I mean, whether you're just looking at the meter by meter intervals, I've never seen this before. That's just exciting in itself. And, scrolling down, just seeing in the last 12 months, Awalé has some of the best, definitely the best for a greenfields discovery. So there's a lot you can see in the PowerPoint here. But it's important to realize this is a much more complex deposit to drill out than BBM. And so you could argue some of that valuation is not being given, but it wouldn't be surprising already at this point for Charger to at least be, 200 or 250,000 ounces of 10 to 15 grams per ton, which even if it's a smaller amount, it's worth a lot more. And another way to look at it is on top of BBM, you have, again, not just a solid tier 2 project when you combine those two together, but these grades are incredible and it's worth a lot more just because of that. So just these two together are worth a lot more than the enterprise value. That's this scissor hole was important because it shows you how the volume is increasing right away. Again, I can't get into those details in this part of the video, but this is a great starting point if you want to do a little more research immediately on your own. Watch these two videos. Again, you can access them right from the beginning of the homepage of the website, and you'll get a better understanding of what's happening here and why it's so exciting. So Charger, the valuation of Charger has a wider potential range than BBM. It actually could be way more, but there's more work to do. And so that's exciting in itself. But I also don't want to dismiss Empire, which was the first discovery at for Awalé, and it's not talked about as much now simply because it's it moved down the ranks. It doesn't mean it's not valuable. It's just that BBM and Charger are the main focuses. But what's important to note with Empire is we already have some very high grades near surface. But I dug up this news release, and I think this has kind of been forgotten. There was a really nice hole just to confirm that there's high grades from surface, and that you have this section here. This is a cross section, but you look at this is the similarity to this high grade part of Empire from the long section. And so you had that 15 at 13 grams right here, and then you had the 68 at 2.4 right here. So Empire is at the moment is on the smaller side. I don't know, it's probably going to be over 200,000 ounces. It could be a lot more than that. But again, higher grade from surface. And if you combine that with BBM, this definitely makes BBM and Empire together worth more than the current enterprise value. Then you add Charger on top of that. We're starting to think about, even at a 25% valuation on that project, because of the Newmont JV, that's, it's going to be 25% of 300 million or something like that. Well, that's 75 million, or it's twice the enterprise value. All I know is that what I've just described is worth a lot more than the enterprise value. That's what I know. And we're not even at the end yet, because we have Scepter, which is a new discovery, but not at economic grades yet, but something totally different. This would be of interest to Newmont, from the copper perspective, but might even start being interesting to larger base metals companies. But we'll see as this develops. And Lando, there've been a couple holes there, but there needs to be more drilling. These are major X factors. It's hard to put a valuation on them, but it's really important to note that these are things that could develop very rapidly going into 2025. But that was just stuff within the JV. And now we're just starting to get to the 100% owned properties. I guess I should go back to, again, everything I just described is just this Newmont JV area. What we're going to look at right now is the Freeman target, which is the first target being drilled in 100% ground, but all this other stuff is 100% owned ground too. So the way we value that is going to be completely different from the Newmont JV. And we're just now getting a very exciting looking target that will be drilled for the first time in Q1 next year. And if you want to learn more about what's going on there, definitely take a look at the this video that is focused on so this is a pretty cool image here, a big termite mound or termitaria that you can see is much taller than Andrew Chubb, the CEO, and he does a great job of explaining why there's some really exciting exploration techniques that make this a high priority target. This is a non-zero value. It is a lot more than zero, this 100% owned, but it's not being valued at all right now. So we're going to see where that's at, but by Q1, Q2 next year, that is something to really look forward to and could immediately re-rate the company as well. Whether it's 100% owned or Newmont JV, all of it could be part of a new IOCG province. And the ones that are already out there are worth multiple billions by big base metals companies like Vale or BHP. So that's something I'm going to talk more about later in the video as well. But it should enhance the current value. So I don't know what this is all worth right now, but I do know it's worth a heck of a lot more than 40 million or 35 million. And again, definite buy target up to 50 cents. You can see that some of those, the BBM and Charger discoveries, push the price up as high as $1, $1.10, and we're back, to 46.5 cents right now. So I'm hopeful that all of this is going to, flip around in 2025, and I really expect it to. And again, I think this is a great buy target right here. And I'm going to move on to the next section of the video, but for some of you, this is probably where you end, and we'll see what happens during this first week, and you can come back to this video later. So thanks for watching this section. And so what we have here is a filtering of any posts I've done as Mining Book Guy at ceo.ca within the Awalé room. You can see that's what this means up here. And this is a good starting point. to get into my journey. I can't believe it's, I guess, been almost a 7-year type journey here since the inception of Awalé, that some of these things that I've forgotten, including the first part. So I'll try to fill in all these details that I think might be of interest to you. It's definitely kind of interest to me as my own journal, and I've forgetting things. It's kind of, sometimes it's good to bring them back in this way. So here, I knew that I had met Glenn Parsons and got introduced to Awalé, but didn't realize that based on this time frame, I actually met Glenn at my very first conference ever, which was Beaver Creek in September of 2017. I thought it was at PDAC, or maybe it was at a different Beaver Creek, but it means that basically for 7 years I had been following the story. But you can read this on your own time. I would say, based on what I remember and looking at this, I wasn't taking Awalé too seriously. I mean, it was definitely in the mix, but I know, it was kind of on and off. Definitely was following the news. And I made a few other posts that weren't, especially about Awalé until November 2019, or 19th of November 2019. And this is important because that is the day the Empire discovery was announced. And I was going to, actually, yes, sorry, I'm here for a reason. So it's kind of, there's a couple parts to this. That was something I posted on, and I did buy shares, and I have that documented, even though I don't think about it very often. This is the Mining Book Guide. This is my room at CEO.ca, where I haven't posted very much. I haven't posted since 18th of March. I'll probably get back to that later in this video. But I put little links, and I'm glad I did, to some of my earlier interviews. I guess this is exactly 5 years ago with my friend Vaughn. And so if you clicked that link, you'll come here, and then you've got a transcript of an interview I did. Pretty much, it was either that day or the next day or a couple days later that it was posted here. But that interview was about the news release and how I felt that I, came across this nice little speculation where the stock didn't move, right away. But basically, in this section of the interview, so it's the middle of the interview, but basically you could either pause this, or you can go to the links I just showed you and read down. Nothing else is especially relevant from this interview. But I thought it was kind of neat because at that time I was treating Awalé like, hey, this is a nice little discovery. Maybe I can make some money. And basically, buy in at 10 cents at the time, and it went up to something like 16 cents, within 24 hours. And it's like, wow, that's like a 60% return on this discovery. And keep in mind that was pre consolidation. I think there was an 8-for-1 exchange of shares. So the price is actually, I think I can show it. I wanted to show it. Yeah, so basically you can see this little hop here. This is, going back 5 years. And that's where, my first real exposure to Awalé came. It feels like, it absolutely feels like a completely different era. What I was interested in with Awalé there had almost nothing to do with my interest today, even though Empire has come back into play, and I'll talk more about that later as well. But it's neat because it feels like a different era. Whatever I was interested in then was this tiny speculation. It wasn't something I would ever have made a video about for this, or at least at the time I never thought about putting a video together for my channel. But it's an important data point. And, I might have met Glenn twice. I knew pretty much nothing about Andrew Chubb and nothing about, the rest of the team, and just hadn't done as much research as maybe looking back, I wish I had done a little more. But the, long story short, the next 3 years, I was barely paying attention to this company. And anyone who is following my channel would know that, some of the companies in West Africa I was especially interested in were more in the Senegal, Mali shear zone area, like Chester Resources on the Senegal side, and then Roscan and Oklo on the Mali side, which I would say altogether were kind of mixed results. It didn't have the super grand slam that I was hoping for there, but that's what was taking my time. Stocks like that in West Africa, and it kind of left Awalé by the wayside. But it came back, interestingly, and this is an interesting story. This video is from 2024, and I'm going to talk about it in a second. But the guy on the left here, Vukasin, I had seen him posting a little bit on social media, and I'm sure he was following me as well. And I post a lot less now. I think I was already kind of on the downswing in that regard. But he reached out to me and wanted to tell me about like some stock he was super hyped on, and blah blah blah. And it was a nice conversation. That's basically the only time I've talked to Vukasin, and yeah. It came down to he wanted to pitch me on Awalé, and that's fine. I listened and got some interesting information out of it. But to be honest, maybe it's just because I personally don't like being pitched that much. I'm just being honest here, but it wasn't something that made me want to run out and do all this research on Awalé, for better or worse. So I didn't research it too much, but I have to give Vukasin huge amount of credit, and actually all of these guys, all four of these guys here, and I think this is kind of a good segue into some of the really important transformations with Awalé. So Vukasin and Devrim right here, and I didn't know anything about Devrim. In this video, this is a must-watch video, so highly recommend that you check this out, and I'll put a link to this and a few other videos in the notes below. This video tells you exactly how they came across the Awalé story and got very excited at the beginning of 2023, probably just a little bit before Vukasin pitched me on it. But management was an issue, and I think pretty much everything they say in this video seems to be legit. There's a few things that they probably couldn't go into as much detail as they hoped for, or as that whether they wanted to or not, just couldn't do that. But this is rare to see this type of, basically shift in such a rapid way. To have these types of hurdles and to actually, go through that transition was a big deal. But going back to timeline, which is important. So I talked to Vukasin, I think, and February 2023. It was in May 2023 that everything that they're talking about in the video kind of happened or finalized, which was, basically Glenn Parsons leaving as CEO, Andrew Chubb being elevated from COO to CEO, where he is to this day. And then Stewart coming on as chairman, but also with his group OrCap making a strategic investment. And Stephen is right here. Another side note, just full disclosure, I actually met Stephen five years ago I think it was 5 years ago at Beaver Creek, and he found me through this YouTube channel, and I think reached out and said he wanted to meet up. I never thought I'd invest in like a company that he's involved with. But I got a very good impression of him. It's just that I knew at that time he wasn't interested in African companies, and that's what I was all about. So it's kind of funny that he is the chairman of this company. And I think it's great that OrCap is on. I like what I see in terms of communication and what they're doing to be supportive. So basically, Vukasin and Devrim, kind of the early guys leading the charge. Again, listen to this video. Stephen is the guy listening to them, which is great. And Antonio, the moderator, is kind of, I didn't realize, I guess he was in the middle of all this at the time too. So these four guys are all really key to Awalé right now. And I will have more to say about Antonio a little later. I've never talked to Antonio before, but I really wanted to highlight all of this and say that even though I didn't act on Awalé in 2023, I appreciated the pitch from Vukasin, and I appreciate this history being out here. I think it's really important for anyone invested in the company to listen to this presentation. So, and this news release is helpful too. And so we're moving on to later 2023 into 2024. So I forgot to note my very last post in the Awalé room was May 2022 on the Newmont JV, and I think it's still worth highlighting today that it is rare for Newmont to make investments in Africa outside of Ghana, and they must have seen something special, especially in the potential of an IOCG district, which we'll get into a little bit further in the video as well. But that was May 2022. This was mentioned previously in this video, but I think I should mention beyond the JV, there was also a strategic investment at that time. And moving forward to December 2023, so basically at the end of last year, there was a follow-on strategic investment. So it's just to confirm that this Newmont JV / strategic investment has been vital to Awalé's continued success and survival, basically survival turning into success. And I think it's misunderstood by the market, and there's been a huge amount of value creation here. I wasn't, really paying attention to what was going on, throughout much of 2023, and embarrassingly, that led into January of 2024. Embarrassingly for me, to really dismiss at the time the BBM discovery. And this is worth noting that this was a true grassroots discovery by the Awalé team, basically from the ground up. And I don't know why I dismissed it, but I wasn't the only one. The market also dismissed it. I'm sure there was a lot of frustration from Awalé management that the share price wasn't really moving on these really nice results that you can see here. And so that was something that was exciting to the company, but I would say it wasn't that unusual because the gold market right at the beginning of the year hadn't really taken off yet. I would say March, April, looking back, was when you started to see some activity, and that actually coincided with the March 18th news release, which was the follow-on hits at the BBM project. And we're seeing what's an improvement in all respects: 2.4 grams per ton equivalent over 75 meters. And scrolling down, that is a nice looking cross section. So that did get my attention, and that's 1.8 grams per ton gold, but with some nice copper and moly. That's why the gold equivalent was at 2.4. And this is from my personal perspective, this is something I'm sure I will not forget, because my very last post on CEO.ca, this was completely a coincidence. It was around 6 a.m. of March 18th. And I remember this. I posted that, had nothing to do with Awalé. I think minutes after I made this post, I saw that Awalé news, and I did a double take. And again, I don't know why I did in March and I didn't at all in January, but I became instantly very, very interested without really remembering Empire or thinking about all the other aspects of Awalé. So I was just thinking about, what has Awalé just done, and what is this something that is worth buying on a speculation here, because I had a little bit of cash available. And I guess we can look at the share price. Okay, so this isn't the best map, but I think if you're on a bigger screen you can see this, but I will just describe it. Basically, March 18th, the stock, I think, was trading around 20 cents the day prior, and maybe it was even 18 or 19 cents. And there was just under 63 million shares outstanding. And I said to myself that day, without having done that much research, you know what? I will buy up to 30 cents a share. I just thought, this, maybe the market's going to pay attention, because I was just thinking very simply, okay, I do know about the Newmont JV. I know there's been some other value creation, but what's happening at BBM, for a 20 million market cap, again, if I use this real simplification, 20 million, 25% of the project, is BBM going to be worth, 80 million or more? And I was already thinking like that. So what I described to you at the beginning of this video, I was using extremely rough estimates, and I probably could have done a better job of it at the time. But hey, I said, you know what? I'll buy up to 30 cents. And so I remember putting my bids in, and I thought I was going to end up buying at 27 cents when I saw the real time, because I use the level twos here. And I guess I haven't shared this with anyone, but if you're listening, this is some information as close as you'll get to having an idea of my holdings without me really sharing my holdings. I ended up buying right at the open over 95% of the shares at exactly 24 cents Canadian. And so it opened there, and I was actually surprised that I got that many shares at that price, but I was happy right off the bat. And then I remember the stock went down to 22 or 21 cents within, I think, 30 minutes of the open. And then I was thinking, oh gosh, is my rough ballpark estimate off? Like, did I miss something, or am I completely wrong here? And I bought some more shares at 22 or 21 and a half. Maybe it even went down. I think it maybe went back to 20 cents briefly. Then some buying showed up, and at the end of the day, that same day, the close I think was at 25 and a half. So I was doubting myself, but I had a fairly significant position, and at least by the end of the day, I felt a little better about what was going on. But I'm just giving you insight. I remember how I felt then, the highs and the lows of that one day. So BBM on its own was super interesting. And I started thinking about, maybe I should make a video, because the stock price didn't move that much from my initial buy. But as I thought about it on those first couple days after these nice results, maybe this is a great time to give Awalé a boost. But even though you can't see it that well here, the price just kept going up and up and up in that week in March. And I think it was right up to March 22nd, basically, over a 5-day period, you went from the low 20s to finishing the week, going as high as 42 cents Canadian, but closing it at 40 cents. And I can't make a video, telling people to buy something that has almost doubled from where I bought in earlier in the week, and it already, blew through, kind of my, highest price target of 30 cents. I just didn't want to do that. And in hindsight, I'm glad I did, and I'll talk a little more about that soon. But as you can see here, there's this huge gap, and that was just totally unexpected. This little run up here, I don't think anyone saw that coming. There was some momentum built up because there was a realization that BBM was interesting. But this just, blew things out of the water, right? Like March 25th. So basically a week later, we have one of the most incredible results we've seen anywhere in Africa, basically anywhere in the world, as I discussed earlier in the video. Just seeing this type of consistency in grades across tens and tens of meters, it's just unheard of, especially for a greenfields discovery. And, I and many others are, jaws dropped to the floor. But this was a real turning point for me because, rightly or wrongly, something clicked. The light bulb went off. I was already doing more research, but in that one day, I decided I am going to commit to this company. This is no longer, a short-term speculation. I think something very, very special is happening here. And, in the past, I think I would have sold a bunch of shares as they went up. I mean, absolutely, it's ridiculous, really. I think, the high was very briefly touched $1.10. Basically, it was like a 4-bagger within a week. And, again, rightly or wrongly, rather than sell, I decided to buy more. I made that decision, and I did have more cash available, found ways to have more cash available. And I was buying immediately after those results. And do I regret it? On the price, yes, but in terms of the commitment or what I was thinking at the time, the big picture is absolutely intact. What's not intact, and I think it's worth sharing this, is that I thought, this was such an intriguing conceptual interpretation at the time that you had, these breccia pipes, coming to surface like fingers, and they would coalesce at depth, and there'd just be some, relatively easy mega target that you could hit, and even drilling around the initial hole or this initial hole that you just be hitting like crazy, and it just happens throughout the year. I mean, that's the easy amazing story that this just once you get that initial discovery hole, it's just easy street from there on, and the momentum just keeps building. And so I went back to things, I guess I was a little bit in la la land, but it was still instructive, and I'm glad that I kind of like thought about it this way, using some historical examples. So here, this was one of the one of my earlier videos I made when the Mining Book Guide channel was really just about mining books, and I still enjoy this book. I hadn't read it in years. Basically the story of Hemlo, and Hemlo was sort of a fluke, but once they started hitting, they were just hitting like crazy, and hitting basically the same types of grades and widths that you got from that initial Awalé hole, much deeper, but just hitting over and over again. And that was in the early 80s. And to get those types of grades now is even harder to do. But the point is, this kind of created that fantasy of, oh, maybe Awalé could do the same thing. And another example of that was Fruta del Norte, and this is actually, I think it's from the legacy site now of golddiscovery.com, which Luke Tenhava created, and it's one of my favorite parts of the site, even though you can't really monetize it. But I think he created this by hand for Fruta del Norte, which was part of Aurelian Resources, which many people in the industry know. But looking at this basically list of news releases on a timeline from the early 2000s, and really in 2006 is where the discovery was made, and over a few months this thing was a 30 baggie or 50 bagger, and even in the middle of it, like thinking, if Awalé was something like right here, and you start matching up the news releases of drill holes, you could effectively have another 5 bagger on top of that within just a couple months. So obviously that didn't happen, but it was instructive to go back to these things. And I really thought, hey, there's a legitimate chance that Awalé could recreate the Hemlo or the Fruta del Norte, because we're all looking for that in the gold space. Now, I knew a capital raise could happen like many other people, but most of us didn't see, this coming, where it was trading at that roughly 80 cent level, going down to 70 cents. But I didn't see a raise coming at 62 cents with a half warrant. And a lot of people were very disappointed on social media about that. You knew a raise was coming, but it just, there was a sequence of events that people were upset with. Some were disgusted with. I was concerned because of possible infighting with the board. That I think that was a legitimate concern. That was my biggest concern, was that something could go wrong to kind of slow all of this down. And the stock price did start to take a hit, but without me not really having time to explain this in this video, I think this is a good segue going back to what these guys did. This basically, what these guys did was really in a year earlier, in April, May of 2023. This conference, the Deutsche Goldmesse, in early May 2024, was right in the middle of all these kind of issues revolving around this raise, which was in April. So they're basically talking about what's going on there. And then we go a few weeks later and we kind of have a resolution on changes in board members. This raise is completed, which ultimately was 11.5 million Canadian. And again, rather than me going through all the details, this is one of the most important videos, arguably the most important to me, that gave me more confidence in where the company was going from here. And so Andrew Chubb was being primarily interviewed by Antonio. So again, I told you I was going to talk more about Antonio, who's the moderator here. This is his channel, Resource Talks, and Luke Tenhava from Gold Discovery, which I just mentioned with Fruta del Norte. He's been a part of a lot of interesting discussions through Resource Talks. But the part I'll link this in the notes below. The most important section is about 27 minutes to 44 minutes in on this May 20th interview. So big takeaways. I genuinely think Andrew Chubb is sincere and honest guy through and through for this company, has become the CEO, and he did about as well as he could to answer some really hard-hitting questions from Antonio. And so a lot of respect for putting as much as you can into the open. And really, after seeing this, it gave me a lot more confidence about where the company was headed. So this is another high priority video. Like, kind of watching this video and this video together, I think is a really good idea for anyone it's a must watch for anyone invested or wanting to invest in the company. And then moving forward, we're basically went from issues in April and May, but finally getting some results at the end of July. The next results of Charter. So you look at the headline, you're like, hey, those are that's a pretty darn good hole. 20 grams at 29 meters at Charger. Now, as people look at the cross section, they see this, and this is likely showing continuity with the original hole 83 here, and there's a lot of technical details that I don't have time to go through right now, but people also saw a scissor hole to that hole where there's very good grades too, but not close to as, like 85 basically is not close to as good as 88 or the original 83. And so just from a share price perspective, we're already kind of down a bit here. It was rising from a low of 50 cents in June, and then we get to the end of July, and there's this little spike here that intraday high was 73 cents, and basically since then we've just been on this continued grind downwards, and it's not shocking, but it is a conundrum in some ways of how could you have further great holes at Charger and just have some disappointment here. But this is an important aspect for why I wanted to take more time to find hopefully the perfect time, which is right now, to recommend the stock for other buyers. And so at this time we hit 73 cents, but then we're in this grind downwards, and I'll talk a little bit more about what was going on. So when we look at this news release from September 9th, these were some nice additional results from BBM. Funny enough, I remember getting these when I was in the plane, or right before the plane taking off to go to Beaver Creek, Colorado, because it happened to be that week. But because it was September 9th, I think this was completely a coincidence, but it was 4 months and a day after the closing of the $11.5 million bought deal that we just talked about. And that is the first day that participants in the placement could sell. And so when we look at that right here on September 9th, the open was at 51 cents, and then went as low as 44.5 or went to 47. But you can see it continued this downtrend. By the way, apologies for not making this little chart larger earlier. It's still not very large. You might not even be able to see it if you're looking at this on mobile, but hopefully you can, on your own time, look at Awalé's chart, especially for the last year. And importantly, looking closer at this, we can see there was a lot of trading volume, especially during the Charger Discovery, back in, or BBM and Charger results in March. I mean, we're talking 2 to 4 million volume shares of volume a day, and that particular day on September 9th, we're seeing 350,000. This doesn't necessarily show all the shares, but clearly it's a fraction of what was traded on the market earlier. But it doesn't take that many shares to move the stock these days, and it's relevant to what I'm about to say, which maybe is not widely understood, but this is a nice little tip. It's always nice to find the exempt distribution form when you can. This is also on SEDAR because it will show you or give you some hints as to how many people participated or groups participated in the private placement. Purchasers in the placement. You have here it says 45, and while it doesn't tell you exactly who was in it, and I'll talk about that a little later, but it does show you the province in Canada or country, and there is a clear positive here for the global diversity of participants. I think that's great to show that a lot of people around the world are now paying attention to Awalé, but because of the variety of purchasers, only one or two of these could decide, you know what, I want to sell my shares as quickly as possible after the 4-month and 1-day hold, and I'll just hold on to the half warrants that I received. So effectively, you're clipping the warrants, and it wouldn't surprise me if that happened. Now that could be a risk even if you had just a couple holders, but right now, basically since April, you have the combination of disappointed purchasers who bought in the 80 cent level or 90 cent, what have you, up here. I was included that. I'm not disappointed. I still own my shares, but a lot of people could easily still be selling these shares going towards the end of the year because the amount of volume that has been sold is nothing compared to what was bought back then. And we're getting into tax law selling season in Canada. I definitely knew that was one reason I was holding off on making a video. Usually October and November are the largest or the most likely times a year. Sometimes into December, but basically the last 3 months of calendar year are typical tax law selling days for both Canada and the U.S. And you just every time there was some type of good news, like July 31st or September 9th, it's a selling opportunity. But you see this little move up here. We'll talk about that in a second. First, we had on October 22nd, the really interesting news that about the really juicy looking new target from Termitaria results at the Freeman target for the 100% owned ground. So this is a big deal because it means that there's a high priority target to be drilled in Q1 of next year, and that could absolutely be a re-rate in the stock, as I mentioned earlier in this video. And then this ends up being a big surprise on November 11th, and we're going to zoom in here to basically the last week. So that news came out when we were at bottom at about 4 cents, and it took a couple days, but we finally saw a little more volume. In the last 3 months, it's still not the biggest volume, but yeah, again, it's nothing compared to what we have out here, but there are signs of life. I was like, and that was where I was worried that maybe the stock's going to blow past 50 cents, but it touched that 50 cent level, and now it's at 46.5 as of this Monday morning when this video is first released. So we have serious signs of life, and I don't think the market was expecting this at all from Charger, and fairly technical stuff, but most people can understand this is a really interesting scissor hole. We have a new model, and that is the immediate driver of interest. While arguably this is the Freeman target to be drilled in Q1 is one of the most important upcoming reasons for a re-rate. So I'm basically just describing you some of the most frustrating aspects of the share price over the last basically since April, and that's a big reason that my cost average it went all the way up to 60 cents. I actually don't mind so much that my cost average is about the same as the placement holders, but as you can tell, I bought a lot more shares over 60 cents than I bought initially at that 22 or 24 cent level. But maybe it'll make you feel better if you're in the same boat as I am, because I know some of you watching this already own Awalé, and I'm still an excited holder. I guess just to finish off or this section a little bit, I just wanted to point out management that I am supportive of. Everybody who's on the directors. I think everyone's aligned. I'm happy to see Artem come on, and I did meet Andrew and Artem in person at Beaver Creek and really enjoyed talking to them. I think the marketing is going quite well. I think I was going to read off. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about media in a minute or two, but we already talked about Antonio at ResourceTalks. There's Jasper at ValPal, Robert with Goldfinger, Trevor with Mining Stock Daily and CEO.ca. Those are just a few that are, Artem, I think, has been helping repost those, and it's been really nice to see a lot of that marketing. But I definitely don't want to forget, and I want to highlight this. In August, we had the official announcement of the revamped technical team. Now, Andrew Smith came back, and I think that was a coup to get him back. And there's a video I'll highlight soon to that where he's featured. But Kirma and John, I think they've rounded out the technical team, and after talking to Andrew about it, I think we're in a really good spot with Awalé. I mean, I just I don't think people should underestimate the quality of the team now, and that everyone is aligned. So there's a lot of good things going on, and we just really we're really hoping that the results, come out at a quicker pace. I know that a big part of this was having multi-element assays takes a lot longer than just doing gold assays, and that's part of the complexity of an IOCG project. Requires that, but some of this downturn, it has been maybe some disappointment in terms of the slowness on some of the news, but I think it's really ramping up now, and so there's a lot of reasons to be excited. So hopefully this is the beginning of a big move. I realize I'm coming up on about an hour, so we'll see if I can run through the rest of this. Probably end up being a little over an hour, but I'll go quickly. Thanks for sticking with me here. Just on jurisdiction risk, this is your best interview. About 51 minutes in, Antonio interviewing Andrew Chubb, all about Cote d'Ivoire or Ivory Coast and jurisdiction risk. For both West Africa and specifically the country there where Awalé is placed. I think things are looking great, but you always want to be aware of things could change quickly, and it's probably one of the larger risks. That's a long interview. If you wanted a little bit of my own personal viewpoints going years back, we're going back to 2016. This was one of my favorite videos that I made earlier on, especially because the PowerPoint I was showing here has some maps that I didn't save anywhere else. These were from a rare Goldfields PowerPoint that was public at the time, and that, again, I haven't seen these maps recently, but I love this one because it shows the clusters that were emerging, and you see Cote d'Ivoire is almost empty. There is a little bit going on. I think this might be Agbao, and of course Odiene is up here, and then another map. It's one thing that stands out are the different colors, and then you see this structural trend going right here, and this bend is right where Odiene is, and now we know it's in a special spot, but I just think it's kind of funny looking at these. So that not super helpful, since it was a while ago, but you might be interested in listening to what I had to say, back in 2016, since I've been following the region so closely. But overall, Cote d'Ivoire looking great. In addition, talking very briefly about other players in the area. There aren't many. This is Many Peaks Mining, MPK, on the ASX, which will be of more interest to my Aussie or Kiwi listeners. So the one property that's most interesting is this one that looks a little bit like a handgun, which they call the ODNA project. You zoom in and you see it's a continuation of the trend of both BBM, and then Lando is down here. And they're doing some interesting work, but they haven't really come up with much yet. They had a news release on August 20th that, some interesting auger results. You've got some anomalies, but no serious results yet. And then what I noticed recently, more of the drilling, and it's a more advanced project. They have a Furky gold project in a different part of Cote d'Ivoire. They're doing a lot more there than ODNA, but ODNA still has drilling that's commencing soon. It's worth keeping an eye on. And in addition, AngloGold Ashanti bought Centamin, which had the ABC project that they bought, this purchase was for Egypt, but they also had some interesting nearby projects in Cote d'Ivoire. And so looking very closely, this is actually the best map that I found, which was released when the Taraco property, now called the Cienso permit, which is the main 100% permit owned by Awalé now. So that Freeman target is right about here. This right here is part of Centamin, or was part of Centamin, which will now be AngloGold Ashanti. So I'd say this is kind of an interesting property. We don't know if anything is going to happen. It might take a while now because AngloGold has to digest that. They're not necessarily that interested in it, but we'll see what happens. I think that is the most interesting property. There's an ABC gold deposit here, but this is starting to get a little far away from ODNA. So anyway, worth keeping an eye on what happens there. And then the MPK property is really interesting because it's sandwiched by additional Awalé properties around here. I actually haven't seen them all kind of in the same map presented by any companies, but it's worth keeping an eye on. Who knows what will happen. But it's good to see that there's a few competitors there, and at the same time, Awalé absolutely has the dominant position. So just wanted to highlight those. Keep an eye on what else is going on, and then US OTC. I wanted to point this out for the Americans. So this is not an official ticker. This is a pink sheet, and you see it says warning, and they're not showing quotes. I cannot, in good faith, recommend buying through this ticker, but I'm hopeful that at some point in the future, this would be upgraded to an OTC QX or QB ticker, because then there'd be a lot more liquidity, and this would be kind of more of officially a US ticker. The weird thing is, this is confirmation that people have been buying this ticker. So again, I cannot recommend this because there's a real lack of liquidity, and it might even, you might have problems with the broker. But I just wanted to point out that this exists, but I think it would be much better if there was an upgrade. And who knows, maybe Awalé will get an ASX dual listing at some point. But right now, ARIC on the TSXV, that is the way to buy it. That's how I own Awalé. But I think it was worth pointing this out for anyone that was interested. And otherwise, finishing off with media, the website's great. There is so much, the news is so clearly presented here. It's much better than most other companies. And this has been, I've looked through every single news release, going back to 2019 that's relevant to the ODNA project. And it was really helpful for me to look back at Empire. And I have a much greater appreciation for all the work that was done at Empire because I went through these. So I'm not recommending that you go through all of them, but it's here for you if you want to be a little crazy like me and go through everything. And in the same vein, on the media page, you've got a great organization of the webinars. And so these were the 3 webinars I talked about at the beginning of the video that I think are must watches for people who are interested. And then all of these media interviews with Andrew Chubb going back to last year, there's a lot of good stuff. So I mentioned, some of the different names involved. I have watched all of these at least twice, some of them 3 or 4 times, and I'm still learning. I'm still trying to piece it together. But I tried to pick out some of my favorites, especially of the long ones. So just I will put all these in the notes below in case anyone is interested to see what I was what kind of helped me understand some things that I haven't actually talked much about in this video. But I would say the IOCG opportunity is technical, but it's a huge part of the value proposition, how all of these different discoveries fit together. And so this is from August 8th, 2023, from about 12 minutes, 40 seconds to 24 minutes in. That's what I'd recommend for this video. This was when Andrew Smith, his first interview when he was with the company. He left the company and then he came back. But September 1st, 2023, I thought there were some really interesting comments from Andrew from about 12 minutes, 45 seconds in to 22 minutes, 15 seconds in. And then ValPal, this is Jasper. Also, these are even longer than my videos, so that's why one reason I appreciate Awalé. I've never seen any other company have these deep dives, and honestly, it's been fun, going through these, even though it's a lot of work. But on this particular video, I really like the section from 52 minutes, 16 seconds in to about 58 minutes in, just talking about the evolution from Empire to Charger and the IOCG side. But there's a lot more in all these videos. And then March 30th, 2024, 3 hours, 5 minutes in to 3 hours, 13 minutes in, more on the IOCG. So this is the best way for you to kind of pick up on the IOCG stuff that I talked about. And then of the most recent interviews, this is the best one to learn more about the team. And this is, Andrew Smith being back in the company. And then there's Artem gets interviewed as well. But I really, really appreciated this interview from ValPal. And I think it's really cool that, of the big interviewers, Antonio with ResourceTalks and Jasper with ValPal, they have different styles, but again, go into so much depth. And Andrew Chubb is in all of them and does such a good job of explaining these things, even though, again, it's a lot of work to go through. So I think we're pretty much going to end there. And, if you didn't get anything else out of the video than this and you're still with me, just remember the homepage is the place to be. Presentation, news, and webinar videos. You've got it all right here. And this is not a bonus, but in case a few people were wondering, Angus Gold, which was in my last video, have made multiple mistakes on buy targets with that one. I still own all my shares that I bought. It's just my second largest holding right now, but just in case anyone was wondering, I did not sell Angus to buy Awalé. So that will be for another video. I didn't want to talk about any other companies, but I just wanted to end with that for the few people that are still with me here. But really excited about Awalé, and we'll see what happens, and maybe I'll get a little more active on social media as well. All right, thanks for listening. Take care.